This is NFA Talk, the show that talks about guns and gun rights, keeping you up to date with what's currently going on, from the newest guns, promotions, and events, plus how we're lobbying for your rights.
All right, just when you thought the Liberals couldn't go any further, here we go. Another amendment to C-21. We're going to talk about it tonight. I've got with me Rick Ickersage, our president, Blair Hagan, our vice president, and our lobbyist, Charles Zach. So, guys, let's get going. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Where do you guys want to start?
Well, you know, it's been a busy few days for us, and I think we probably should start with the radical changes that Liberals have made to Bill C21 in the past few days. The biggest, well, you know, we can go back to the handgun freeze, but beyond that, the biggest is adding another 430 firearms to the list, basically center fire hunting rifles and variants, which increases that number substantially. So that's where we're at right now, and we're gonna touch on everything we can tonight. Blair.
Yeah, absolutely, and we want to also get into some of the politics of this as well. I know right now everybody is got the list as it stands today, and is frantically going through it to see, is my gun on a list? Is my gun on a list? You know, what guns are they targeting? What are they not targeting? That sort of thing. As we all know, we've had a chance to take a look at it. It's a complete mess. It doesn't make any sense. I think what the Liberals did here was a lot of cut and paste, just to get this out there in front of the committee and to get a lot of controversy going over it. And I know that's something we're going to be discussing tonight too. Why did they do this? We're going to explain it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we have this government that sold C-21 in the first reading and the second reading with, the handgun freeze, the red flag laws, and a whole bunch of other small parts to the bill. And then, they find out going through talking with all the witnesses that, this bill is really flawed and maybe they should pull it back. So things aren't going well in Ottawa for, the government with the Emergencies Act, with the Nova Scotia shooting. There's a lot going on. So, of course, let's scapegoat the firearms owners. And we have to do something about this bill because it looks really bad. So they dropped this amendment, G46, where it just, it was nowhere close. They've changed the scope of this whole bill, and they've already gone through first reading and second reading. And right when we're in clause by clause, they drop G46. I don't know. I was.
Well, where do they go when the heat's on the Liberals? They go to firearms. Charles has actually been sitting in on the SECU committee meetings, and he'll give us some highlights of what's been going on there.
Yeah, so I was there for 2 sessions, and I've been watching it, of course, up until now as well too. And you're right. This is this is being railroaded through this SECU committee, which is Liberal dominated and supported by their ideologically motivated counterparts in the Bloc and the NDP. I was there Thursday, and they've only gone to the First Amendment. And the Bloc basically declared that no matter what comes down the tube, they'll be voting for everything that comes down here, no matter what the motion is. So they're way ahead of the game. They're into this ideologically. They want to see all guns gone, as the Liberals do. So, that's where it's going. But there is hope. So
Charles, when you said just the Bloc, what do you feel about the NDP? They're going through it as well.
Well, it's interesting. They are supportive, and I have lobbied NDP in the past, and they understand, the flaw, the premise of banning my guns and having an effect on crime control. They don't understand it either, but of course they're whipped to, to understand the party, message. And interestingly enough, I had a nice little conversation with the MP there, the NDP, and what's his name, McAllister, and. I asked them outright, do you believe that, these measures are going to have a significant impact on homicide, domestic violence, suicide? And he went right into his canned messages. It was, he didn't have an answer, right? But, and then I challenged him a couple of different times in a, diplomatic way, kind of questioning and, Q&A manner. And I could see that, he doesn't seem so committed to the idea per se, like Pam Damoff. She is, she is passionate about this, believes in the misinformation that she's made up here, but I don't get the same kind of sense from him. So, who knows what's going to happen in the future?
Well, I'd like to expand on that too. I know a lot of the people out there are really hitting their NDP MPs on this now, and the party is feeling it. There is a lot of concern there. A lot of NDP ridings in this country are rural ridings with a lot of firearms owners who are affected by this in a very, very detrimental way. And I got to say, you guys are doing the right thing because they need to be held to account. And if they go forward with this, you need to hold them to account on election day as well. Make them listen to you. A lot of times I'm so concerned about the political activity of firearms owners. Whenever something like this happens, political activity is an absolute must. We look to give you direction on what you need to be doing. But what I'm seeing out there right now is people are already doing it. They know what to do. We will continue to do that. We will bring you up to date on what's going on and the direction you need. But right now, I think Canadians are doing the right thing to show their opposition to these measures, and we need to continue it.
Christian Anderson asked, there is hope. Explain, or is there hope out there? Well, yeah, there is hope. There's a couple directions here. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background right now this legislation. They're looking at a lot of points in the legislation and the way it was put forward, this bill. And also, you know what, the big hope out there is get out and vote. There's talk of an early election. Get out and vote and change this government. Let's get rid of these Trudeau liberals and their marriage made in hell with the NDP. That's the big thing right out there right now. But like I say, there is a lot of stuff going in the background, and we're following it very, very closely, and we'll keep you informed. And we are involved in this stuff.
There are a lot of errors and inconsistencies in this bill that do not stand up under scrutiny, and the Conservatives are giving those a lot of scrutiny right now. Will continue to do so. Frankly, it doesn't make any sense. I know, a lot of the reaction out there is this is insane. I mean, it's silly what they've done here, and if you try to look at it logically, it really is. But that doesn't matter. The bill does not stand up under scrutiny. The OICs don't stand up under scrutiny. There's a lot of questions about how this affects the basic civil rights of Canadians, their property, and those, they will be held to account. They'll have to answer those questions. It's not a fate of accompli where all of a sudden, they do something like a freeze or they pass a bill, and the next day there's a cop on your doorstep going hand it over. It doesn't work that way. There is a lot of stuff that has to happen before any of this comes to fruition. And frankly, the logistics involved are really, really difficult for the Liberals. Rick kind of alluded to the fact that two things. Why was this done? It was done for deflection. This government is under a great deal of pressure because of the Emergency Act hearings. They are not going well for the government. The government appears to have overreacted in imposing the Emergency Act on Canada, and they are taking a lot of heat on it. Also, there are continuing controversies in Parliament. This government's under a lot of pressure. They clearly have failed. They failed Canadians. They failed this government. They're failing our economy, and everybody knows that. They are getting hammered every day in Parliament, deservedly so, and they have to do something to take the emphasis off of that. And there's a couple of things going on here. Rick alluded to potential early election, maybe as soon as the spring, and that is one part of it. Okay, the Liberals need something to take to their voters and go to the polls, but there's a couple of other things going on right now, and I think the first thing we need to get into here is the reaction they want to get from firearms owners right now. If you're watching the Emergency Act hearings, there's a lot of emphasis on sort of forming a narrative that the Canadians who went to Ottawa earlier this year were a bunch of racists, bigots, homophobes, every terrible thing under the sun. And the mainstream media is doing that, certainly. The government is doing that in an attempt to justify their actions It's not necessarily working, but that is their narrative. And if they can convince Canadians that that was the case, they may form some sort of basis for justification of that. Similarly, with what they did with the expanding of the OIC and C-21 is they want to get a reaction out of us. They want to get a reaction out of you. Okay. I know there's a lot of frustrated and angry people out there. We talk to them every day. But I think what we want to do here tonight is introduce a note of caution. You may want to go on social media and the online forums and vent. You may want to make cryptic remarks, veiled threats. Don't do it, because they are being monitored. Every gun form in Canada is being monitored by the RCMP, including this one. Okay.
They're watching. They're watching.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they want those reactions. Okay. They want people to put those reactions out there so they can be investigated. They want to investigate people and basically have, a straw man to put up as why these measures are necessary and appropriate. Okay. Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to add to that, Blair, too, they want to cause a rift in the community. That's their plan. That is definitely part of their plan, to cause a rift amongst us. We're going to make sure that all lobby groups are going in the same direction. We've been in contact with all of them, and we're working in this. We're going to make sure we're working in the same direction, and we don't step on each other's toes. And you know what? We're going to fight this thing. And another thing too, we need to get more people involved in this. Out of the between the 2.2 and the 2.5 million licensed gun owners in Canada, only a small percentage of them participate in any kind of lobby. If we can get everybody involved that owns a firearm in Canada, that's going to be one of the biggest voices that we can come up with. So, I implore you to go out there and talk to your friends and neighbors and farmers and whoever lives in the suburbs in the city. If they have firearms, join a group and let's fight this.
Another point here, another thing that they want to do here now is create a similar situation that existed at the end of the last federal election campaign. There's going to be a lot of pressure put on the Conservative Party of Canada to either move off their firearms policies or support part of these bills or these measures. And that was very effective in the last federal campaign, as everybody knows. When it looked like the Liberals would lose government in 2021, they trotted out the firearms issue again, hit the Conservatives very, very hard on that. And the leader at that time, Aaron O'Toole, was forced to waffle. He chose to waffle. He chose to flip-flop on Conservative policies, and he paid the price for that at the polls. The Conservatives lost a large percentage of their vote to the PPC over this and other issues. They want to create a similar situation today. So you have to contact your Conservative MPs, support them, offer your support, and make it clear that you want them to stand up for the rights and freedoms of Canadians. You will not accept any backpedaling on this issue. You want them to go forward and defeat this. They need that support. They need to hear from Canadians so that I don't think this is going to happen. This is a different party now. Mr. Poilievre has very solid policies on this, but we need to support them to make sure that situation never happens again.
I just want to give some insight to the reason for what they did. So I heard about this at SecU from a couple of the MPs, and it was implied in some of the Q&A that went on with the SMEs that showed up there. So the Liberals understand that their original OIC, of the military-style assault ban OIC, is flawed procedurally and administratively, and it was open to collapse at some kind of a challenge. That is one of the primary reasons that they hoisted it into this. Okay, so what happens now is that instead of leaving the OIC to stand and maybe the Liberal regime falling one day, that OIC can easily be reversed by another OIC. But when it comes into Bill C21 and it's put through legislature in legitimate terms, and it's passed into law, then you need to reverse or repeal that through the same process, which takes time again through consultation, and everything else. So they understand that. So there's lots of time for them to push back, to obfuscate again, to filibuster, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the real reasons that they brought this OIC in, right? More disturbing, though, is what they've done with the primary definition of prohibited. That's the G4 amendment, which basically says that anything that's, semi-automatic, shotgun, or rifle that has a, barrel diameter of a certain size, and the gun itself is designed to receive, a standard capacity magazine, so that is leading up to what's coming next in the SECI committee, where they're actually going to define what a military style assault rifle really is. This is going to be hilarious, right? Because it's going to be some made up liberal thing again, and I'm sure the conservatives are going to pull their hair out and they'll be all over this. But once again, the SECI committee is stacked, by the liberals. The chair is a liberal. The fix is in. This is going to happen. It'll go quickly to Parliament. It'll be rubber stamped by the Liberals and the Seals and the NDP, and it'll go to Senate, hopefully.
Wow.
And we're already preparing for this, right? That the Senate is the body of sober second thought. Unfortunately, there's a lot of progressives over there that pretend to be independents, and they have their own ideological bent and bias as well too. So I'm sure they're itching to rubber stamp this as well to make it into law. But there's a lot of people over there that look at this from a rational point of view and have justice in mind, and will challenge the intended effect on crime control here. So there is hope there. But the real hope really is, even if it does become law, this government is hanging on by its fingernails to power. And as Rick and Blair have already said, we need to marshal our troops now. There's looks like there may be an early election. All the CPC EDAs out there, they're having their AGMs now. They're reconstituting them. I recommend that all our members and all gun owners out there get onto these boards and help these electoral district associations prepare for the election and steer a course to victory, because it is totally possible.
Absolutely.
So let me jump in here. So it's kind of interesting because you said that they're going to define a military style assault rifle. Like, we've been asking them for 2 years. So I'm I can't wait to actually see their definition. Let's pick away at this bill a little bit more.
Just to follow up on that before we start picking away the bill, it's nothing short of hilarious to watch. And when the Liberals were questioned about military definition of a variant. Well, there isn't a definition of a variant. Definition of a military type assault rifle, and the definition, something with a selector switch that'll fire full automatic fire. How does that apply to this? Well, they didn't have an answer for that. It's, they don't have the answers, and they're famous for skating around. Terms that aren't even defined. So, it's almost a comedy of errors to watch them sometimes on the other side.
And there's an attempt here to redefine those terms too.
That's
okay?
exactly the point here. It doesn't have to make sense or be accurate. It'll be politically correct.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, and this goes far beyond our borders as well. Well, Canada redefined it, so we can do it now as well. Yeah. And that's why it's more important than ever that we defeat this, and we will defeat it. I mean, we at the outset of this, we said, there's hope. There is infinite hope, because look at the state of Canada today. We have a Liberal government that has been in since 2015. They have a steadily, well, frankly, I think everybody on this panel and everybody watching would probably agree that they have destroyed us socially, economically, and culturally. Okay, I think there's broad recognition of that out there. Justin Trudeau got his miracle majority and lost it in the following election, tried to retain it, and was denied it again in the following election. So his political fortunes are falling. There's no question about it. Okay, the Conservatives ran 2 federal elections with lackluster leaders who could not capture enough vote to form government, could not capture enough excitement, even in the Conservative Party, to do so. Today, it's completely different. There was a paradigm shift in the party. There's a paradigm shift in Canadian politics, and we will do our part to make sure that plays out, because it's not only this issue, as important as it is to us, and probably as important as it is to Canada as a nation. I think it's important on so many other issues that the people watching, they're affected by it as well. You're here because you want to know what's going on in regards to firearms, but it's all our duty to make sure this government falls so that Canada can be rehabilitated.
I think I just want to double down on what you just said there to emphasize this point of opportunity. That last election, they didn't get a mandate, and that's why they made that marriage in hell, as Rick said, with the NDP. Less than 30% of eligible voters out there cast a ballot.
Yes.
The Liberals only they got in, but with the lowest popular vote in Canadian history. Okay, so these are all telltale signs of a rotten situation for them. So now this is for us to lose. So if you're going to watch this from the sidelines, from the beer in your hand on the television, that's not going to help. We need everybody at the front now, and all doing hands-on work. If you can't do that, there's three things that we need to do here. There's treasure. If you can't, be involved, then we need your money. We need your talent if you can come in. And of course, we need your time. So let's do that.
Absolutely.
Before we get into Jordan's points, I know Jordan wants to pick this bill apart, and that's what we're going to do. You also have to understand that the NDP is riding the red wave right now. The NDP have never had so much power in the federal government as they do now. They've got these little 2-bit things they're getting across, and the NDP loves the position they're in right now. But unfortunately, I don't think the NDP voters love the position that their party's in right now. So I think that's going to come into play. Jordan,
that's the case.
Yeah. Right. So let's get back to this bill, and I really do want to pick some of the key points away from it that I feel that our membership and the people that watch us should know. Right. So they actually put in there that they're gonna do this by OIC. So once this all goes through, it's OIC, but they did not set a date. So that means that they can hang this over top of us and use it at any time. And I believe it was Dane Lloyd that said, okay, so this is the perfect setup. Let's do it just before an election so you can use it as part of the election campaign. The other thing I noticed too is there was no talk of a buyback in this one. Nope. Right. And that makes me a little nervous. Right. And seeing as they moved all the firearms from the first OIC of May 1st into this amendment, it's all one package now, and they're not talking about a buyback for our firearms. So, it leaves me to think, and it would leave everybody to wonder, are they even going to proceed with this buyback? Is this going to be you got 30 days, drop it off, or, we'll talk to you, right? I don't know what you guys feel about that, but, that's a big question to be asking.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the implications on the rights, freedoms, and especially the property rights of Canadians, because if that were to come to be, it would have implications on all different kinds of property as well. I think it is unconstitutional. I know it would be challenged. Okay. Because we still have courts in this country that are interested in those things. You can't just do something like this as government, especially with as much property as they're trying to address here, and just simply say, turn it in, you're getting nothing, and we're going to move on, because we do have rights, we do have freedoms, and we do have property rights, despite what some politicians, parliamentarians, and even judges think. It has to be fought out in the courts, and it will. There are real legal questions about what they're trying to do here in terms of how people can own and enjoy the legitimate use and the economic potential of that property. So I don't think it's as easy as that. Just 30 days, turn them in, because where are you going to turn them in? This is a huge
exactly. I was just going to touch on that, Blair. Like, what they have absolutely no infrastructure in place to come and confiscate these firearms. And, even if you put the buyout money aside, because that kind of went away when they shifted this over, the cost to the taxpayers is going to be astronomical. Just to put infrastructure. Somebody made a comment on there. Imagine them trying to. Well, actually, it was Canadian Cutthroat made a comment. Can you imagine trying to confiscate SKSs? Nobody has any idea how many SKSs are. That the SKSs are probably going to outnumber every firearm on both sides of that list. So where do you start, right?
Where do you start? You start with the old long gun registry, okay? And we saw this with your May 2020 OIC, when they were trying to basically float that this doesn't affect that many firearms, not that many owners, and it's not really a big deal. It won't cost that much. And I think when they said, well, we're going to add the Ruger Mini 14. Well, how many of those are in the country? And they said there are 4,000 in Canada. 4,000 Ruger Mini 14s in Canada. And this is a firearm that has been imported as a non-restricted firearm since 1972. Okay. So where did they get that figure? Okay. 4,000 Ruger Mini 14s. That's what were registered under the old long gun registry. Yeah. And to the Liberal Party of Canada, because that was a magnificent success, that is all there are. The other ones don't matter, because if you didn't register, you're a criminal and you deserve whatever you get. So as we know, there's probably 10 times that amount. Okay. I mean, it's a very, very popular firearm, but that's the methodology that they fall back on to try and justify these things. SKS rifles, there's just no way. There's no way. But I mean, how can they confiscate them all? They can't. But the fact of the matter is, if they give you an order to do something and a deadline, and if you do not do it, it doesn't matter what it is. After the fact, you're a criminal, So the numbers game, the numbers game is entertaining, for politicians and people like us to sort of mull over. But the fact of the matter is, it's not about compliance. It's not about actually achieving anything. It's about creating more criminals out of formerly law-abiding Canadian gun owners.
Well, but hold on. But Blair, we're technically criminals already. It is against the law to be in possession of a firearm. That PAL is only your exemption, to get out of jail free card.
Yeah, so, no, we are licensed. We are licensed to commit the offense. Yes.
I just want to get back to what Jordan said about what was not in the proposed amendments. And there is no buyback that's mentioned there, but there's also no mention of grandfathering. But there's also no mention of a confiscation regime either, right? So what this actually means that it's just going to be illegal, like they did with the, the extended Ruger mags way back when. It's just illegal. Okay, well, thank you.
Next day they're illegal. Anybody with a Ruger extended 25-round mag is a criminal the next day.
So, but I mean that's kind of the premise here. But I just want to get to the costing here now. So with this costing and these extra firearms that are on here. It's been costed by the Conservatives to be someplace in the realm of $10 billion plus, okay? And that, I'm sure, will double, as the Liberals get involved, if they are involved, okay? But, the Liberals are always saying, oh, yes, they're going after the root causes of crime, and the urban situations, and they're tightening up the borders and things like that. Just imagine what $10 million would do at the border in these cities where there is socioeconomic problems, right, that are creating these scenarios and the environment for this kind of misuse of handguns and whatnot, right? $10 billion, right? So
their answer to that is drop mandatory minimum sentences. That's their answer to that. Drop the mandatory minimum sentences. They would never do that to firearms owners. We're going to be held accountable to every letter of the law. But man, if you're a gangbanger, you're good to go because your sentence just got cut in half. You can serve your sentence from home.
Where are they going to get the money for this? Like, Canada is pretty much broke at this point. Where are they going to find this kind of money?
Well, they're not, and this also exacerbates their problems with the provinces. As everybody knows, a number of provinces have come out against this: Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, I believe, Yukon. The more will come on board. do not
Hint,
want to
hint,
be.
Ontario, we're waiting for you.
Yeah, there's
Ontario,
rumbling
step
something's going to
up.
happen on
Contact
Tuesday in
your government.
Ontario. I don't know what that is yet, but we'll see where
Yeah,
that goes.
Ontario, step up, contact your provincial government and put pressure on them. But the fact of the matter is, because you add more onto this, it's more of a burden, and Ottawa needs the provinces to participate this if it were to go anywhere, right? It's very, very logistically difficult, very, very expensive. And if the province is on board and willing to contribute funds and logistics to it, it makes it more possible. But I mean, it exacerbates the problem, because those provinces have already said, no, we do not support your agenda. We will not participate in it. You're on your own. So, it just makes it more difficult for them. And it leads back to this idea of, yeah, it's completely, out to lunch, but that doesn't matter. We'll do it now. We'll figure out how to do it later.
Exactly.
This whole program is going to be something that if they stay in power, it's just going to be extension of amnesty. They really never thought this out. Like they just pulled the trigger and said, let's see where it lands. And
well, Jordan, you know what? It's a repeat of Bill C-68. Okay, that's exactly what they did back in the early 1990s. Hey, we got a great idea. We're going to license all gun owners and register every firearm in Canada.
Yeah.
And how are you going to do this? We'll let you know. Yeah. And the reason they could do it at that time was they had back-to-back majority governments. There was no opposition in Ottawa to stop this. They had back-to-back majority governments, and they had the luxury of doing that. Okay, we've got a bill. Now we're in power. Now we can figure out how to do it. And they had 13 years to figure out how to do it, and they couldn't even figure out how to do it. A program like this that they're proposing, to figure out how to do it, my estimation is they would need at least 5 to 10 years in government to actually make a stab at it, get that infrastructure, get a rolling program going to actually collect this stuff.
Yeah.
But if that's the point, if they stay in power, they can attempt that. I think they're running out of time on this.
Yeah, they've already spent millions of taxpayers' money trying to figure out how they're going to do this, and they haven't reached any kind of conclusion on how they're going to do this. They're spending taxpayers' money day in and day out, but nothing's happening at the end.
Didn't they hire IBM to do this consultation and set up a program for them? And we haven't heard anything from them. It's almost like IBM said, hey, we're just quietly going to go away because what you guys want is just almost impossible, right?
Yeah.
Gave them a program, but I mean, could that program work? I don't know. We've seen it, and it's pretty, it's pretty thin on logistics. Okay.
Well, and then they tried something with Canada Post, and Canada Post says, no, we're not going down that road, right? Like it's just not going to work. So,
like you said, though, this is all about power and politics, and part of that is the theater. So you say things that you're going to do things. Doesn't matter whether or not you execute or not, right? It's the optics and whether or not your voters believe that you actually did something, right? So, yes, they gave it to IBM, right? Whether or not they do something, I'm sure there's some IBM contractors out there that are making a fortune, right? And that's part of the the thing here with the situation. But that's really what this. It's not about public safety. This is not about crime control. This is about remaining in power, using it as an effective wedge issue to get power again, and ultimately it's in line with some minority people out there that do want to bring wholesale civil disarmament to Canada. And I'm talking about, their paid anti-gun orgs like Pauli and the Docks and Danforth. They are being government funded, I believe. They've hidden, their financing through backdoor channels, but I've looked at their financing and they can't sustain what they're doing the way they're doing it with just volunteers. This is once again Wendy Tsukier version 2, where they are self-funding themselves and pretending that it's third-party, independent information that they're receiving from the so-called public. No, this is a scam.
Yeah, the Liberals have no problem spending money all over the country with no end game, and that's part of the problem, and that's part of the reason they shifted onto firearms, because they're getting burnt on all this money they're spending for sharing with their friends with absolutely no results, no end game. That Arrive Can app, classic example. Billions of dollars spent to their friends, and all of a sudden, bang, what's the end game? Well, it's gone now, but the money's gone and we can't account for it.
And here's something we should not forget in this. We're looking at the long-term projection of this, and the possibilities involved in it. But we have to remember that people are going to be hurt by this in the short term. Okay, and we've already seen this with May 2020 OIC, and we're seeing it with handgun freeze. The results of the May 2020 OIC, although those guns are effectively is still in legal possession by their owners. They're still covered by that amnesty. At the start of the OIC, what happens if you can't own the firearm anymore for any reason? You have to move. You cannot store it anymore. At that point in time, people had to hand in those guns. Okay, there was no measure to allow them. My God, there wasn't even any direction from provincial CFOs on how to move with a registered OIC firearm. We don't know what to tell you. That's how crazy that's how crazy this is. I want to comply with the law. You need to tell me what I need to do to be authorized to do this, and the authorization doesn't exist. It took them 2 years to come up with a method of authorizing people to move with registered OIC firearms, and also to allow them to store those firearms at alternative locations when they could not store them at their primary location. But still, people emigrate, they leave the country, that sort of thing. You can't transfer the firearm. What do you do with it? They had to hand it in. And that was all part of this. And the Liberals knew that people would be put in those situations. Guns would have to be turned in. Guns would be confiscated as part of police investigations. Okay, well, we've cleared you, but your license is under review, and you can't hold the registration for the firearm anymore. So we're just going to keep it. Those sort of things as well. Handgun freeze now, and the biggest problem there is states. What do you do when you're handling an estate with handguns in it? You cannot transfer it to an individual anymore. The Liberals hope that you contact some business and contract them to export it to the United States or something like that, but that's not always possible. And whatever compensation you could possibly get for that handgun, a common handgun in Canada, would largely be eaten up by the fees in doing so. So again, what's the only alternative? Call the police, come pick it up. And that's happening too. So people are losing guns right now because of just the horrific lack of respect of the rights, freedoms, and property of Canadians, and the amazing cluster situation created by the OICs. And you know what? They don't care. It was all designed. But we have to remember that, and as this goes forward, that will continue. So, I mean, we're going to have to come up with ways of addressing that.
And Blair, you know what makes me sick is they're keeping statistics on how many people already have turned in their guns for the reasons that you've said.
Yeah.
And later on down the road, they're going to say firearms owners are complying, and they're going to use those statistics against us, right? They're not going to say, hey, well, everybody had left the country, or we had people die and these firearms got turned in. They're just going to give us a number already 20 or 30% have been turned in.
We are not going to let them. We have been down this road. We went down this road with the gun registry, where they tried to use statistics in that way. And we have the real statistics, okay? So whatever cockamamie numbers that they come up with, because it is, at this point, it is very, very low levels of guns, people based on people's circumstances. It's not the broadest number of guns in Canada, certainly not that they want to achieve. We're ready for that.
Yeah, this is... I just want to sort of bring this point in because it's interesting. We've been watching this for a long time, and the liberals are very clever at being dishonest, right? So, and they're good.
That's putting it mildly, Charles.
Well, you know what? And they've got a lot of practice, right? So it's disingenuous, unethical, immoral. I totally get it, but it works. Okay, so and all through history we've got all kinds of examples of stuff like this, like. Nazi Germany, Hitler supposedly burned down the Reichstag so that he could take power. Okay, so this is something like that, right? So, at the beginning of Trudeau, he said that, we're looking at doing stricter gun controls. Well, what happened? All the people out there that had guns bought more ammunition, right?
Yeah.
Then they threatened even more stuff. So they bought even more guns and more ammunition. And then they justified their measures by saying that, well, there's been such an increase in the purchase of guns in Canada that now we have to act. Well, Who started
Yeah,
this?
let's ban imports now, because every time we open our mouths, people are buying guns. So we got to stop the imports right now. We have to stop
Yes,
the imports
yes,
right
but they
now.
manufactured that rush,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
always talk about the end game, but not what precipitated the situation, right?
Well, they're
Exactly.
not all the sharpest pencils in the box
They're
either.
not.
Okay.
Believe me.
Especially those that are ideologically motivated
Oh
and
yeah.
interested in gun control. They really don't know what they're doing, and frankly, I got to say it. I think they have just contributed to their ultimate demise as a government.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean this stuff, it's not going to get them any votes. They've already got all the anti-gun votes. We know what they're trying to do. Maybe they can force the conservatives off their pro firearms law reform policies. I don't think they can do that.
No.
But the fact of the matter is, I mean, as a program, and in 1995, the Liberals were definitely committed to running their gun registry program to its ultimate conclusion. I mean, it was a different political time, but they were fully invested in this. Today, they really don't have the time. They didn't plan this well. It's poorly conceived, and there's no way to implement this in an effective manner in the time that they have left.
You can't use firearms as a wedge issue in 3 elections in a row. People are going to catch on.
And we have.
Yeah.
I just want to double down on that as well too. So, just so people, if they don't recognize it for what it is, this is the Australian model version 2. Okay, so they did the same thing there, and we all know we've got the studies that is abject failure. Actually, firearms ownership went up, crime was unaffected, right? But
Right.
I think the point that needs to be highlighted in that particular bad experience is that they also did it incrementally because it was a good political wedge issue again, right? So yes, they went after the semi-automatics and things like that, but then when that fizzled out and another cycle came along, what did they do? They went after lever action and pump action, right? So, and then when that fizzles out and they're still in power, and if it still works, then they'll go after the bolt action, right? So this is the end game. So if you're sitting there, in your lodge someplace right now, holding on to your 1965 270 pump or semi-automatic Remington right now, and saying that they'll never come from my gun, well, they have. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
actually, with that, you're sitting in your you're sitting on your moose stand with your
yes,
with your 300 Win Magnum with a telescopic sight on it, and all of a sudden, you wake up the next day. Next thing you know, it's a sniper rifle, and they're coming for that. Too.
yeah. So the whole point is that they're coming for everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
They tried to separate us. A lot of people believed it. They ran into their closets with their mom and pop shotguns or whatever it is. Not going to save anybody. Everybody needs to come to the forefront.
And a lot of people woke up to this as a result of the long gun registry, C-68. Everybody knows once you put a registration beside something, they're going to come get it eventually, and which is why it was so important to defeat that law. We did defeat part of it. We need to defeat the rest of it. But the fact of the matter, and don't forget this, okay, as part of the OIC effort, the Liberals went back and called all the information out of the old long gun registry. Yes, as we all know, they still have that data, and they sent letters to everybody who held a registration for one of these things prior to 2012. We have information that you held a registration for this firearm prior to 2012. If you are still in possession of it, here's what's happened. So it comes back to revisit, and that's why this organization made such an effort to have the government at the time, the Harper Conservative government, destroy that data. Okay, that's the important thing. If the data does not exist, it cannot be used. And we worked like hell to get that government to do it. Add it to the bill, Bill C21, which eventually passed. The registrar was directed to destroy the data. However, it was secured by other departments of the government and delivered to the province of Quebec to construct their registry. And by the time we got onto that change of government, the Liberals are in power, and of course they don't care. They're going to continue to run their program, and if they have that data, it's going to make it a lot more effective.
Yeah, but then again, we're talking about a 2012 list. how many times have those firearms changed hands? The starting point, but in my opinion, it's an obsolete list.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely
yeah.
obsolete, but there are
Yeah.
people out there, good law-abiding Canadian, just regular Canadians who want to be law-abiding. And that's the problem. I mean, all this is directed at people who have tried to be law-abiding, want to be law-abiding, and the idea is to frighten them into actually surrendering the gun. I mean, this is a legal order.
Yes.
This is a legal advisement, and if you don't do it, most Canadians are pretty respectful of law, and even if they get a tiny fraction of those firearms, hey, it's another gun into the smelter, right?
The talk amongst the minions is that if they get 20% of these firearms, they're going to be ecstatic. That's what the talk is. That's what we've been hearing.
So I want to roll back real quick though, because I want to point out how silly this new list is. We were talking, Charles, you were talking about the Remington, and Rick, the other gun there. If you're going to the range tomorrow and you're taking your young one, your nephew, your son or daughter out to the range, and you're taking your GSG 16, it's a rimfire 22. That is on the list. And, Miss Damoff said, we're banning weapons of war, weapons that were meant for the battlefield. Please, somebody tell me what army or what military service is going to use a GSG 16 in a war, a rimfire 22. Please, somebody tell me. Please.
Well, it looks like something scary, and that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Which is not the way to do this. It's not the gun anyway. But Blair, you said a great point. I just want to backtrack to that, about the licensing, the registration, everything else. So, in 1995, a lot of people begrudgingly, kind of accepted the licensing and all this other stuff, right? Because it seemed to be fair. We could still do our stuff, and we could still operate and have fun, right? Well, now we can't do anything. So why do I even want a license anymore?
Yeah, no. The amount, and that's the heartbreaking part of this. This further undermines respect for the law. Okay, C-68 definitely did. All right, a lot of people, that was the sentiment at the time as well, and it fortunately it went into a groundswell of a movement to remove the Liberals and replace them with a real conservative party. But all this does is undermine respect for the law, because the people are going, I've done everything I had to do to comply with the laws in order to continue to enjoy and use my property, and this is the result. You're going to confiscate it from me. What happened to my country? This is the respect for my rights, freedoms, and property. And of course, the Liberals will go, well, yes, it is.
It could create another black market.
Black market.
I use a Benelli M4 for an example. A fellow has an M4. He gets a diagnosis from a doctor that he's a terminal, and he wants to look at his gun is worth nothing because it's prohibited. So a Benelli M4, which sells for $2,595 from a gun shop, is probably worth $8,000 on the street. So you're on your way out anyway. You want to look after your family. All those firearms that you had in your safe, you thought maybe would be sold by your family members to make their life better, and all of a sudden, here I am with this firearm that isn't worth anything. What am I going to do? That scenario has to pop up. Like there has, they're creating another, another black market to make legal, law-abiding firearmers, resort to things that they would never do if none of this stuff was ever in place.
By design.
And history repeats itself again. Let's just talk about prohibition, okay? So 100 years ago, the U.S., inanely decided that no booze for you. So what happened? The Canadians stepped up and the Mexicans stepped up, and they supplied the demand for the thirsty Americans.
Yeah.
So when you do that kind of a thing, especially in North America, when you have these massive borders that we can't defend, ultimately, yes, organized crime is going to expand, to meet the consumer demand for this, and the black market will definitely be alive. But the real bad thing about this, and this always happens, and it's happening right now in our urban centers with all this gang warfare, right, is that there is more criminal violence as a result of them trying to protect their illicit markets. So they're not making us safer. they're creating a situation where it will become even more dangerous.
You know what? And I address this whenever I talk to politicians about this issue, the issue of the criminal misuse of firearms, which is principally fueled by smuggling of firearms into this country. From the United States, we still have the longest undefended border in the world, and deservedly so, right? Righteously so. I mean, our two countries are. Our friends are their family, okay, and there is no reason to militarize that border. Canadian Border Services does an excellent job with the resources that they have. Okay, there is no dereliction of duty. There is nobody's falling down on the job trying to keep illegal guns out of Canada. They do the best they can with what they have. Could they use more? They could probably always use more. But I don't see a problem at the border in terms of trying to interdict the smuggling of illegal firearms. And whenever I talk to politicians, this is what I say to them. Okay, these are the facts. What's missing from this equation here? And they're going, well, we need to put more money into border services, and have high, more, stiffer offenses for doing these things. And I go, no, that's all good, and that's been done in the past. It's going on now, but what's missing from this equation? And they say, well, what? And I say, it's the demand for illegal firearms. As long as that demand is there, it's going to be served, and the criminal element will always find ways to get them to satisfy into Canada to satisfy that demand. Okay. um, Look, I mean, today, use of firearm a criminal offense is not that serious an offense. They like to say that it is. We take this very seriously, but come on, look at the shootings in the streets in our major centers. Look at the light sentences that those offenders get for doing that.
Yeah.
The importance of firearms in gang and criminal culture today. It wasn't the case 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago in Canada. Used a gun on an offense, that was a big deal, and you did hard time for it. In Canada, not anymore. The gun charge is the first. The gun charge is the first charge that is dropped. You plead to the murder, we'll drop the gun charge. That sort of thing, and that's a real problem. As long as that demand exists, it's going to be served. You make the penalties for offenses of the violent use of a firearm so serious, and you make it known that we do take it seriously, and no, we're not going to plead that away, and that's going to go away. They will find other means of committing their crimes, probably nonviolent. Okay, because if I can't stick a gun in your face or bust a bunch of caps at my rival gang members because I don't want to do the time, that's going to reduce the demand for firearms,
Yeah.
illegal smuggled firearms, and that's what's missing from the equation today.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Now, I mean, for just regular Canadians who can't get the firearms that they want to, it does create a black market. And it's sad to say, and I know all of us talk to gun owners all across Canada every day, and we've been doing this for years. So we've got our fingers on the pulse of what's going on in our community, and I've heard this too. It's like I've done everything I've had to do to be law abiding, and they're still coming from my property. Why am I doing this, Blair? Why do I hold a firearms license?
That's right.
Why am I observant of the act and its regulations? Why do I try to comply with this? Every time they change the rules, every time they make it impossible for me to continue to enjoy the use and economic potential of my property. Why do I continue to do this? The criminals aren't affected by that. They're not affected by any of these restrictions in terms of licensing or registration or authorizations to transport and this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, they're bad people and they do bad things to other Canadians. I'm not that guy. I'm a good guy. I want to be good to my fellow Canadians. I want to respect their rights and property. But when it comes to my rights, my culture, and my property, the government of Canada is not allowing me to do that. Why should I continue to be why should I continue down this road of being law abiding, because they've just taken advantage of me? And at that point, you've created a very, very bad situation in regards to a culture of contempt for laws and regulations. And the Liberals have been doing this forever, certainly since 1995 with Bill C-21. Yes, we've had political successes. I mean, the election of Stephen Harper did a lot of good. We ended the long gun registry. We made amendments to other regulations to the Firearms Act. Everything was not fixed. They did not go as far as they needed to go, but we had political victories. And I would remind people that we will continue to have those political victories in Ottawa. We can restore respect for the law. We can reform laws so that they do respect the rights and property of Canadians. Okay, so I and sometimes this works, and sometimes this doesn't, because there's a lot of people out there, especially right now, making decisions, and it's heartbreaking in a lot of cases to hear people who have given up on classic Canadian concepts of right and wrong. Okay, if you're going to make me the bad guy, you're going to make me the evil one. I guess that's just who I am now, and that's what I'm going to be. And now I'm outside of these systems. I'm not a violent person. I'm not somebody who's going to commit crimes or violence or anything like that. But you have pushed me out. Okay, yes. I'm out now. I'm done. I'm out. Certainly, this was done under Bill C-21, and it's being done today. And I think politicians, regulators, and law enforcement have to understand that. Okay, this you are forcing Canadians into this corner, and until we get really positive firearms law reforms that restore some of those concepts, that's the way it's going to be, and it's wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. It's wrong.
And they know that, Blair. I mean, I'm not going to mention who said it, but law-abiding firearm owners are law-abiding until they're not. Right now,
everybody knows who said that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go down there again. But there is a superficial understanding of that. Okay, fine. Even if you're a licensed person, you're subject to misbehavior or evil. Okay, I get that. So you won't be constrained by a license or the law.
But is that how the firearms community is judged? No, it shall not be judged that way.
No, but here's the real rub on this, and you alluded to that already, is that they keep moving the goalposts away from us. We're running to try to catch up, and I can't make it, right? So like I said, why do I even bother with a license anymore? I've already been criminalized. I've been demonized. I'm treated unjustly in the courts, with reverse onus. Cost me a fortune to get my innocence back, even when I'm innocent. All right, I'm falsely accused under these laws. We are being persecuted like any other politically targeted minority group out there. This is not Canada anymore, right? This has to stop. I know it's a great thing for the Liberals to churn on, to get votes and everything else, but the Liberals out there need to understand that there's a lot of people out there who, like you said, are losing their private property. We're being treated as a second-class citizen, right? This is not North Korea yet. Okay, so let's wake up everybody, not just the conservatives and the liberals and NDP. Let's take our country back. These values and principles that made this country great have been stomped on by this cabal, right? Yeah. And they need to be held to account, and they'll only do that if there's a groundswell of grassroots people out there who say enough is enough. We're taking our freedoms back.
Yeah, the NFA is going to continue to fight these laws within the law. That's our mandate, and we're going to keep doing that, and we're not going to give up. So it just that's why we're getting these words out to you. We're throwing a bunch of scenarios out there. It just it's endless when you hear this stuff, and it changes every day. This law changes, this law changes. It's an endless feed from the Liberals to try to defeat us in every way they can.
So we should probably give everybody listening our path forward here and what we plan on doing, right? Without letting some of our stuff out of the hat here, but for those that think, hey, the gun lobbies are just kind of sitting tight or whatever. No, we're continually working. You have to understand that, they dropped all this, and it's on a Friday, on a Thursday or Friday. It's not going to be repealed on Monday. It's not going to happen that fast. you also have to remember that we're still in the committee
Infancy
stage
of this thing. Yeah.
We're still in the committee stage, right? So we still have to go back to the House for third reading, and then it's still got to go to the Senate. So it's still, there's lots of time here, which gives us a lot of time in our legal department to overlook all this and see what we can find and where we can go at this. So there's going to be lots of stuff in the future. This is not everybody saw the list. This list is not final. I mean, and on top of that, they're going to add more to it, but this doesn't mean that it's actually going to go through. Yes, the Liberals do have the numbers in the House, but they're, the law is the law. The Bill of Rights, the Charter of Rights, there's a lot of other, checks and balances. And from what I understand, when I was watching the other day at the SecU, and, Charles, you were there, when they were asked, did you even look over the Bill of Rights? They hide behind, oh, there's privilege, we can't tell you. They hide behind this. But basically what that tells me is, we didn't do that. So let's just say, privilege, and they're going to go back to do this. And, we've seen this with the government. They pull the trigger and then they say, well, we'll figure it out afterwards. And, May 1st is a prime example. They pulled that trigger, and then now we're stuck here, still trying to figure out what they're going to do. And I'm sure they're running around trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do. Yeah. So don't give up. My message is to everybody, don't give up your hope. I see a lot of people saying, hey, I'm moving to the States. Now, you know what? You can move to the States, but if you've been paying any attention to their politics, they're going after a semi-automatic ban too. Biden is not pro-gun. So, you might take all that time, spend all that money, go through the whole process to move there for 3 days, and then you're in the same boat that you're here. Yeah. So
you can't run away from this.
No, let's stay in Canada and fight. Join that organization. Help us fight. Get out there, get vocal. Start writing these MPs. A lot of people say too, the writing is useless. No, it's not. Let's show them, because if we don't do anything, then they're going to think, well, they just don't care. So let's let it roll. No,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's going on right now. And I know it's going to count. Our people, after so many years of being politically involved in this issue, our people know what to do. There are new people who have come on board recently who may have not had the opportunity to be politically active. Now's the time. You need to get involved and join your Conservative Party EDA. Write letters to your MP, MLA. Let them know that you're opposed to this. So we're in a good place to defeat this now, but we need your help.
Be rest assured, the NFA is working behind the scenes on this very, very intensely right now. We're not going to let the cat out of the bag, because we don't want to give them any kind of ammunition, but I can assure you that we're on this. And you know what? Since this started, basically all four of us and the rest of our people are running on 1 or 2 hours of sleep. We've been formulating some stuff. We've been trying to figure out some stuff. We've been working with our legal teams. So be rest assured that we're on this.
Jordan, I just want to get back to what you said about these amendments, right? So whether or not they did any kind of review or whatever it is. Okay, so just so people out there understand this legislative, bureaucratic, policy-driven process. Okay, so the government of the day has the privilege of making a law through policy. So they'll invent something, right? And what they'll do is they'll punt that down to their bureaucracy, to their experts, right, to craft some kind of a law. So when I was at SecU, I talked at length with some of the SME witnesses there from public service or public safety, and they explained that situation to me outright. But they made it clear actually in their testimony that they're not the ones that are coming up with this stuff, right? It's Trudeau and his little gang of, anti-gun people over there. They've conjured up some kind of an idea, and then they give it to these pure bureaucrats who are basically employees and, have to do the bidding of their master, and they do, right? So they admitted that these new amendments have not been costed. They have not been tested in terms of, efficacy, in terms of anything really, crime control, whatever it is.
Letter of the law.
Yeah, it hasn't been tested constitutionally, right? So these are things that were just slid in, right, without any kind of background, at haste, which once again, bodes well to the rumors that are out there. The election's coming. They want to ram around all this stuff through. So, but once again, that is the system. So don't blame the bureaucrats so much. Although, I did pose this question. I go, so if Justin Trudeau asked you to do something even immoral, that has been done in the history in the past, goes, what would you do? Right? And goes, well, I am an employee, and I would do my job as efficiently as I could, and. But the thing is that, how does that rest with your conscience, right? I mean, there's been atrocities in history that have
liberal
been
conscience. I don't think those two words fit in the same sentence there, Charles.
Second World War, Japanese Canadians sent to camps,
yes,
disenfranchised their civil rights.
That's right.
100%.
There it is.
Yep. So history repeats itself. Let's learn from it and let's stop this nonsense.
We will.
Yeah. If there is election, get out and vote. We need to make some big changes here.
All right. So I guess we've gone on a little over an hour now. I think we'll wrap it up there. We definitely this topic is not done. One final thought, for the Liberal Party who are watching us, they do watch us. We know that. Just one quick message: firearms owners this time are united. Right. And we are not going to give up, and we are not going to go easy. So be prepared for the fight. We are united. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in. This has been another episode of NFA Talk, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NFA Talk. Like and follow the NFA on social media and sign up to become a member.